Welcome to the Ben Willett Team Real Estate Referral Spotlight. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Adam Thayer of Thayer, Regan, and Thayer, Newport County's largest real estate law firm, just a few blocks away here in downtown Newport. Adam, thank you for joining me.
Okay, Ben. Great to be here.
So what's been up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good,
What's new in the world?
I'm an adult now, which is terrible, so I have to work every day. But luckily, I work at a great place, and I get to work with great people like you, so, we're making the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, every day is a opportunity to do something better and bring some more light into the world. So I'm hoping that we can do that here and shed some light on your business. You are the first guest we have had that actually hasn't worked with me in real estate yet, but I know you're young, so there's plenty of time to change that.
There we go. Right?
And I will say, I have leaned on you so much over the past 7 years for advice and knowledge, working with clients, our mutual clients, and everything from real estate to personal, so I can't thank you enough for joining me.
God, 7 years. My God, where's the time going? We're all getting old.
Yep. And Adam, we were talking, you've been in the business now 11 years. Tell me a little bit about how you decided you wanted to start working with the family business that has been in business since 1989, and how things are going there so far, how your role has changed. Just tell me a little bit about the business and your experience so far working with your father.
Thank you. So my office, there are three partners: Richard Thayer, Peter Regan, and my father, Mark Thayer, and they started in the '80s, as Ben alluded to. And over the years, there's been many iterations of the firm. I think we're kind of at the best we've ever been right now. I think it's very common for many people who grow up in a family small business that there's a certain likelihood that you might join it. And my dad was always my soccer coach as a little kid. Great friends with him, and so it just was a natural fit that I would join the firm and work with my father. It's great hanging out with him every day, so it's a privilege. And when you get out of school, you don't know anything about anything as much as people in their 20s, act like they're their early 20s, think they know everything about everything. I was very green when I first got out, and I still remember doing my first deal with Jane Roach and just telling her I have no idea what I'm doing. And she just laughed and said, "Hey, we're going to figure it out." And then the next thing a decade goes by and you've done a million deals and you feel like you kind of know what's going on. And so I think my transition into the firm was an interesting one. I mean, I graduated college in 2007. Excellent time to have zero real world skills and be entering the labor market. And I think that as I've kind of progressed through my career, we've seen lots of ups and downs. The market was very poor when I first got out of school, when I first got out of law school in 2012. But as we've seen, it's kind of coasted up for the last decade or so, and now we're dealing with a little bit of struggles right now. But I think my team and people such as yourself are well positioned to take this period of time to catch our breath, meet new people, figure out new paths to success, and really get ready for the next productive wave, hopefully in the spring of 2024.
Adam, I know you and your father both went to Portsmouth High School, as did myself. And the community involvement is certainly something that really sets you apart and really makes your company get repeat business and thrive in this very challenging and very a lot of competition. Tell me a little bit about what's so important to you about putting your clients first, because clearly it's worked being in business since 1989, and I just can't speak highly enough about my experience with you and that kind of word of mouth reputation.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for the very kind words. I think that it's a twofold part. First is the team that we have at the office. And so my father and the other partners all grew up on Aquidneck Island. My parents are from Portsmouth. Peter's from Middletown. Richard and son were from Newport. And then it trickles down to the rest of our amazing staff. Annette Toms has been with my father as the primary real estate paralegal since the 80s as well. She knew me when I was a little kid. She clearly outranks me at the office. We then have Tiffany, who also grew up in Newport, and then two more newer additions to our staff that were actually your year in high school at Portsmouth, Allie and Amy, that are both great. And then a bunch of other people. Melissa Green in my office, who does the estate planning and probate, grew up in Little Compton, went to Middletown High School, super active in Middletown youth athletics. The same way my father was with Portsmouth, particularly soccer, and the way Peter was with Middletown baseball. And so I think it sounds almost cliche to say it, but it's just being entrenched in your community and valuing your staff and also the people that you're dealing with on a daily basis. And one of the things that's when my father does a closing and it's a Portsmouth property, we know he's going to be in the conference room for 2 hours because he's going to tell the clients from the beginning of history, from day one through the founding of the Valley Inn restaurant. And then we end up seeing all of our clients at the Valley Inn or West Main Pizza or any awesome place that we're very fortunate to be around here in Aquidneck Island. So I think that it's both valuing the clients because they're going to be your neighbors. It's not like we're just doing these international deals or something crazy where it's a very faceless, kind of nameless organization. We're in the trenches is the wrong phrase, but we're kind of on the ground floor with our clients, with our staff, and we're hoping to not only see you at the closing table, but then also, hey, buy you a drink at the Valley Inn when I'm there mooching off my parents. So.
I've been in those conference rooms with your father when he's given the history lessons. I love it. So Adam, when I think about SRT, I always think about real estate, obviously being a real estate agent and referring business to you primarily for real estate. But I know your company does a lot of other services. What other services do you do and your company provide to people of the Newport County?
Another great question, Ben. So with law firms, there's kind of really two large kind of categories of law firms. There are the very large ones or larger ones that have a million people doing a million different things, and they might have extremely high levels of specialization. And then you have more of the mom and pops. Maybe it's a 1 or 2 person shop, and they're kind of more of a general practitioner, almost like your family doctor. We're kind of in the middle. We have 11 attorneys at the firm. We have like 15 staff. And so what that allows us to do is, and again, it sounds a little cliche, but almost have the level of experience and expertise that each lawyer has for their particular practice area, much like a much larger firm in a large city. But again, we're the hometown folks, so you're going to hopefully see grabbing a drink across the street at Pasta Beach or something like that right after work. So as you alluded to, my father and I primarily focus on the real estate, commercial and residential, and kind of related stuff or business entities. Let's say you own a Airbnb in town that you need an LLC for, stuff like that. But then our other lawyers in our office do a bunch of different things. We have the other 2 partners. Peter Regan is the solicitor for the town of Middletown. So that's a lot of land use and zoning. And then Peter and his associate Michael Monti also represent a lot of other people around who are going to, let's say, you want to put a roof deck on in Newport, which will make your neighbors' heads explode. They specialize in getting those things passed.
Going to HDC,
those zoning, planning, and then they do just general litigation as well, personal injury, contract disputes, those types of things. Richard Thayer is a former America's Cup sailor, so he and Chris McNally at the office, who's one of the other associates there, handle a lot of maritime, a lot of the large yachts that come into town, yacht sales, brokerage. Chris McNally also then handles a lot of the CRMC issues. So let's say you come to me with Joe Moneybags, who's going to buy an awesome house off Ocean Drive, wants to put in a large dock for his boat. Chris is going to handle that with CRMC. Melissa Green, as I've also kind of mentioned, she handles the estate planning and the probate in the office. And then Michael Monti, again, works with Peter a lot, does a lot of the litigation, the land use, the zoning. And then Chris also has kind of a complementary practice, which is pretty rare in more small firms like we have. Chris does immigration work. So a lot of the hospitality industries here have a lot of international folks, whether maybe they might be European young people or maybe Hispanic people or Caribbean people basically outside the United States who are coming here to either work temporarily and then maybe they fall in love or something like that and they need to become a lawful permanent resident or a citizen. And Chris is also fluent in Spanish, so that really helps. And so we kind of try to have this kind of full service situation where we might have a file that comes in the door that might seemingly be, hey, this is a cookie cutter residential deal, but then wait a minute, they want to take title in their trust, so we got to bring Melissa in. And oh, by the way, this is because this is a new home because there's a new marriage that's going to happen with an international person. So Chris is going to help out with the immigration, and then they want to put a pool in the backyard, and so Peter has to help get that. So it's instead of having to spread your contacts across a million law firms, and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and no one really knows what's going on. You've got it kind of all under one roof. We can cook the appetizer, the main course, and the dessert, and serve it to you. And make everybody happy.
I know I've always seen you traveling to different parts of New England and also down in Florida to help out different buyers and get your licenses all over to help the most amount of people possible. What other states are you licensed in?
Thanks, Ben. So the way the bar exams work, unfortunately, people my father's generation usually are just licensed in Rhode Island. It's just the way the bar exams worked back in the day, and a lot of the people my father's generation, they're old dogs. They don't want to learn a new trick, so they're just going to stick with Rhode Island. That's what they got. So nowadays, at least when Melissa, Chris, and I were getting out, most people took 2 states. So right away, we were licensed in Mass as well, and we started doing Massachusetts deals. And one of the great things that I saw as us doing that is, right now, we're probably half an hour away from the Massachusetts border, 20 minutes. So it's extremely common for us to have clients who are maybe selling a house in Westport to buy in Little Compton, or selling in Providence to buy in Boston. And so the logistics of those two closings, particularly with back-to-back, people got moving trucks loaded, their dogs are being boarded, the whole craziness that we know with real estate, to have one law firm, okay, we're managing everything, right? We're gonna be the quarterback of the deal. Massachusetts, they're gonna sell, we're gonna get their proceeds wired to us, we're gonna hold on to it, immediately apply it to the Rhode Island purchase in the afternoon. It sounds easy, but when you have multiple firms and multiple realtors and multiple everybody involved, the logistics can just become exponentially more difficult to manage. And so when we saw that, it really helped us not only expand our business, but improve our brand and improve our client just relationship and their experience. I then moved into Connecticut during the middle of COVID because I'm a crazy person. And we just happened to get a great client who flips houses, who lives in Rhode Island, flips houses in Connecticut. And we, like anything, you learn something new, you look like an idiot the first few times you do it, but you fake it till you make it. And now we do even more Connecticut than we do Massachusetts. And then a guy that you probably know, a friend of ours here in Newport, decided to start buying property in Maine. He said, "You want to get licensed in Maine?" I said, we'll figure it out. So I got licensed in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And we've started doing, and I'm doing a client referral from Eric Chappelle, lady from Portsmouth, buying a property in New Hampshire as an Airbnb property. We're going to do the closing right here. They don't have to get contact with somebody that they don't know in New Hampshire. We're a known commodity. They're going to come do the closing right here. I'll do it at their house, whatever they want. And then kind of the big fish was really Florida. Unfortunately, you can't waive in. I had to take the bar exam down there, but luckily I passed. We're in. We're just starting to do those deals, and I really see the value add again to the client of, Florida's a huge place. I don't know too many people down there, but I know my parents' generation is entering that snowbird phase. And I really see the opportunity for the expansion of, all right, you're going to snowbird, you're going to maybe downsize your house up here in Rhode Island or sell it and get a condo or whatever, and then you're going to buy a place in Sarasota or Naples or wherever. Again, we can do the entire thing right here in Newport, at your house, wherever you want. The money stays in our escrow account. You're not getting some cold referral to somebody you don't know. And if you're working with a local lender, whoever it is, maybe it's somebody at Shamrock, maybe it's a Bank Newport, whoever it might be, again, they might be much more comfortable lending on that deal because they know that the file is going to be handled appropriately. So it really just helps the customer experience, the referral partner experience, to know that it's all being taken care of, it's all under one roof, and we know the deal's going to get done and done the right way.
The trust that goes into when you establish a relationship and the amount of more services that you can provide, it only helps your referral partners as well.
Absolutely.
I've referred you this week as well to a client closing in Connecticut, and that trust that I don't have to go find somebody in Connecticut for him to close with. I say I close with this guy all the time. You're in good hands. Really makes me look good too. So thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But on top of all the things that you're doing to grow your business and offer more services to your clients, what are some things that have been challenges for you in the past couple of years? We were talking the other day at a closing, some changes that have occurred through COVID, both good and bad. But what are some things that are kind of trends in the market right now that you're getting ahead of?
Well, one of them that's huge is wire fraud. So for anybody who is watching this video, I cannot emphasize enough the major peril, unfortunately, in the real estate industry in particular, of wire fraud. And so my office, a lot of law firms have decided to stop wiring altogether. And for my office, that's just not possible. Ben might have a client who's selling in the morning to buy in the afternoon. Well, the money has to get wired, And so unfortunately, it's extremely prevalent and extremely scary. I cannot overemphasize how sophisticated the fraud attempts are. And so we have invested in the infrastructure to protect against that to the best that we think is humanly possible at this point, through wire fraud insurance, through multi-factor verification processes that are a complete pain in the neck. I'm going to be completely upfront and honest about it. But at the end of the day, we are going through that, and unfortunately, the client has to go through that to protect their money. And I see a lot of other firms or other just industry professionals who are much more loosey-goosey on that, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they will not wire at all. Right. So I think the number one thing that I want to highlight to people is never take wiring for granted. If you're not working with a firm or with professionals that take it as like crazy serious as we do, then you need to take it crazy seriously, and then you need to own the responsibility for your own money. That's number one. Number two is interest rates. So, we went through, ever since Ben's been a realtor, since I've been out of school, we've seen a almost continual bull market of real estate with interest rates slowly declining. When I first bought my house in 2012, my interest rate was 4.75, which sounds incredible now. A couple years ago, it was terrible. And just what a crazy time period we're in. And as interest rates have kind of ticked up, the influx, particularly in highly desirable areas like Aquidneck Island, Jamestown, Bristol, Narragansett, Barrington, the influx of cash buyers that, for people like you and I who grew up in Portsmouth, the real impact that has had on the local community, where because the local people, and I don't even mean just people who grew up here, but people now who maybe moved here to work here, are struggling to afford properties because already the bull market has already pushed those prices so high that now with the interest rates, it's a double whammy. And so I think the struggle to find ways to both through local regulations, but also through creative financing options to make living where we grew up affordable. And then to shift gears slightly on the commercial end, because I think somewhat surprisingly to me, commercial real estate has stayed very productive and very strong, even despite the kind of dip in residential recently. Because if a business is going to expand, they need to expand now. They don't need to expand 2 years from now. That business might be gone. So the interest rates, while they're important to them, they're less sensitive to them in my experience, because if they need to expand, they need that new spot. It needs to happen now. And so one of the great resources that I now work, it's a huge part of my book of business, are what are called SBA 504 loans. And you drive around Aquidneck Island and you would never know how many properties. We just closed one yesterday for a bed and breakfast in town. How many properties here are SBA 504s? Many restaurants that we all go to all the time. And the general idea on those is, as I was talking to Ben about before we started filming, when you have a residential closing, you might be able to get that $17,500 first-time homebuyer credit. You might be able to get a VA loan where it's 0% down. There are options for you that might decrease your cash to close or the money out of pocket at closing that help you ultimately qualify to buy that property. In commercial, that's not really the case. You're usually just getting a conventional mortgage from a bank, and usually 25 to 30% down, and you're on some sort of a variable rate loan, usually, let's say, a 5-year variable rate loan. And that might work for a lot of people, but there are other people who business might be new, and they might not have 25 or 30% to put down, and they might be very concerned that 5 years from now, rates will be even higher, and they're going to be, well, wait a minute, I'm going to buy this property, and then 5 years from now, I won't be able to afford my mortgage. Enter the SBA that has a system they partner with local banks where they will give you, the bank will lend you 50%, the SBA will lend you 40%, you only have to bring 10, and the 10 can also be seller financed. So somebody such as yourself, again, let's say the space room was a commercial condo and you wanted to buy this for the Ben Willett team. Instead, let's just say it's $1 million, you might only come to the table with $100,000, or if the seller financed that portion, only your closing costs.
That'd be,
Complete game changer. And then the 40% from the SBA is fixed for 25 years. Now, most bank commercial loans are going to have a balloon payment after 10. This is going to be fixed for 25 years at below market rates. So again, rates aren't in the threes right now. That was kind of a fairy tale that we all lived through collectively. But now it's a way for, similar to the way that banks on the residential side are trying to get creative and trying to find ways to help people finance these properties that are becoming increasingly unaffordable. There are options on the commercial end to do the same thing for businesses locally that are trying to expand, create jobs, and sustain the local economy.
Adam, every time I talk to you, I can honestly say I learned something new. How long has that been going on? How long has that those new the SBA had those guidelines?
Well, so the funny thing is that they've been going on for decades, but it's one of those like loan products that I feel like it's not sexy, so it doesn't get the play that, hey, VA loan, we see all of our mortgage broker friends posting on Facebook all the time. That sort of like grassroots marketing isn't happening for this. So, I have certain clients who every time they buy a property, they're doing SBA 504 because they know about it, they know how it works, they're comfortable with it. Whereas other people, I had a partner in my firm come to me a couple of years ago. He had a client who wanted to buy a property from his parents, and he said, the problem is he only has 10% to put down. Well, then if you as the realtor or the lawyer or the whoever the lender, maybe you're a commercial lender or whatever, and you can go to that person and provide that value add to the client and show them, nope, I know about this product. This is how we're going to do it. Don't worry about it. You can still afford this. That's how you really prove that value add. That's how you show your client that you're worth whatever they're paying for you, and you're going to get those referrals down the line, and then they're going to come back to you for their house or whatever else that they might need, or their will, from a law firm perspective. So yeah, it's one of those things. I was just, when I first learned about it, I was just as shocked and amazed as everybody else.
That education piece and really understanding your market and understanding the industry really goes a long way in being able to say, hey, no, I know about something that you might want to consider.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you offer to your realtors and kind of strengthen those connections and help just push our industry forward.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Ben. Rhode Island Association of Realtors. My office teaches a handful of classes through them that gets realtors continuing education credit, which of course everyone hates to have to do, but I have to do them. All the different states, it's a nightmare. But hopefully, these things that we're forced to do actually do provide some sort of a real world benefit, and you actually do learn something. And so, Melissa at my office teaches buying and selling from trust and estates. Michael Monty in my office teaches, it's a class called Assessing Town Hall. So what is zoning versus what is planning? What does HDC do? How do you navigate this? How do you help your clients figure out tax assessments? I have a few classes that I teach. The first one that I ever created was Law 101. And so I wanted realtors to be able to know, what do lawyers do? Why do we do it? And what are we thinking about with these different things? So you don't just always think we're just being a pain in the neck. Yeah. From how do we assess, okay, was this negligent? Is this fraud? Did they not lie about water in the basement? To why do we pick an LLC versus an S corporation when we're setting up a business entity for a client? And kind of everything in between, and why you want to avoid litigation at all costs. Then I have a few other classes that we teach, like Contract Law 101. And then I created one, Commercial Real Estate 101, because there's a lot of realtors that I know are trying to get into the commercial realm. I got into the commercial realm. I came from residential. And it's almost like knowing Spanish and learning Portuguese. It's similar enough that you could fumble through it, but you're not gonna pick up on everything, and you're gonna miss a lot. And so, because I haven't been doing this forever, I was new not that long ago. I've made all the mistakes, so hopefully my realtor friends don't have to. And I can tell you all the stupid things I did and how many times I look like an idiot. And now I hopefully somewhat know what I'm talking about, and we can go through all the stuff from just how does a purchase and sales agreement get handled in commercial real estate versus residential, all the way through this is how we handle the closing. And then the class that I teach that has by far the most traction is I do a Massachusetts versus Rhode Island one. Spoiler alert, Rhode Island wins. Rhode Island is the better state. We can all agree on that. But it's just trying to take agents that might be, hey, maybe they're from Rhode Island and they're going to start dabbling in Mass, or vice versa. What do you need to know about the two different states, and how do you make sure that you're not making at least the very common mistakes that I see all happen all the time? Massachusetts being traditionally time is of the essence, where Rhode Island isn't, and that really impacts closing dates and things like that.
Septics.
The septics, how we handle how taxes are prorated in the different towns, quitclaim deeds versus warranty deeds, how the landlord-tenant eviction processes work, and everything in between. And then even stuff on the realtor end of like when seller disclosures, are they mandatory? Are they not? When do you have to give them out? Everything like that. And then I'm trying to create a class like that with RIAR, the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, that will also do Rhode Island versus Connecticut. And then we're going to do a tri-state one that compares all three states, so that I think it's worth most realtors locally being licensed in all three states, and really understanding Rhode Island as a home base. I think it's a good home base for the three states, and then what's different in Mass, what's different in Connecticut. That way, again, it's your people are paying you for your knowledge, like your experience and your wisdom in this practice area is what you are essentially selling, and your time, and so. The more you know, the more valuable you are, and the more valuable you are to your clients. And so that's hopefully the goal of all those things that we do.
I can't, Adam, I can't thank you enough for your time and your authenticity. Nobody knows it all, but and you learn from your mistakes, and that's part of. I was a young, starting out realtor at one point, and that fake it till you make it mentality has got to go through your head. But at the same time, you just got to be honest and let people know with where you're coming from and what you've learned. So, Adam, your knowledge is being passed on to the greater real estate community. I want to say thank you for that. Over the last 7 years, I've leaned on you many, many times, and can't thank you enough for that as well. So, appreciate your time today.
Hey,
Thanks for
thank you.
coming in.
Ben, you've been a great referral
And,
partner. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. You're a pleasure to work with. Your team, everybody, it's great.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that as well, Adam. I like how you didn't forget to mention your team, and I couldn't do what I do without my team that help support me and push the business forward as well. You've been well trained on that, I have a feeling. Your father's taught you well.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for coming in today. This was an awesome conversation, and again, I learned something new every day.
And while we're saying it, I can't forget my bookkeeping department. We call them bookkeeping it real. They're the cousin to real estate in our office. We could not do it without them. The number of checks and wires that we have to get out, and the amount of BS that they put up with me and the real estate team. We couldn't do it without them either. So
Well, thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, man. You too.